I'm going to try to cover several things here. Now, first, my image. Do I look like a composite image of the Unabomber? Periodically when I look at, myself in my cell phone when I'm making these videos like this, with my jacket hoodie on, it's a hoodie and the sunglasses. Now, I think I look a little bit like the composite image of the Unabomber. Now, if you remember, that was Theodore Kaczynski. His brother had turned him in. But when they actually caught him, he looked nothing like that composite image. So I've often wondered, how accurate these composite images are sometimes. Somebody sees somebody that they think is the bad guy, and turns out that bad guy has nothing to do with the actual crime. Now, I've got better things to do than blow people up. I got no desire to ever hurt anybody. I just kind of think I look like that composite image of the Unabomber for some weird reason. I don't know. Maybe just my goofy mind. Let's see. Next, I'm going to cover, my warehouse. I got a list here that sometimes I compose a list, so I say. But anyway, my warehouse videos. The ones that I covered just today. There's three big old masses of those warehouses. As you head west on Buckeye Road, US 85. Now there's, you can see cars around some of the warehouses, maybe two or three, and there's a whole bunch of these places that have no tenants in them. Now I've had this theory, and I'm really hoping I'm wrong, but it goes back to FEMA camps. Now there's a conspiracy theory that if our civilization breaks down, if the president declares martial law, they herd all us law-abiding citizens in FEMA camps. Now I think these, like I said, again, I hope I'm wrong, but they herd all us law-abiding citizens into these warehouses that are unoccupied as FEMA camps. I'm probably wrong. They probably just overbuilt these things. That's just one of my conspiracy theories. Again, my crazy mind wandering away. Now, the next thing I'm going to cover is Claire. Her YouTube channel is Don't Scare Claire. Now, most of her stuff is ghost, paranormal stuff. Now, she lives in England. Most of her stuff is there in the United Kingdom. I think she's doing one or two here, 100 places here in the U.S. and maybe worldwide. I don't know. I haven't watched all the videos, just some of them. But anyway, the one I was listening to this morning is on Heathrow Airport, there in London. And I was thinking, I wonder, about LAX, how many ghosts there are, because there's been, a handful of fatal aircraft incidents there in LA. And I wonder about Sky Harbor. That Sky Harbor is the one here in Phoenix. There's actually one in Glendale. There's one in Mesa. There's a Goodyear Airport over here. So, Goodyear Airport, it's Goodyear. It's a general aviation airport now, but it was a Navy base back in World War II. Well, I actually looked up Luke Air Force Base just to be curious, and Wikipedia said it started operation in 1941. So it was in operation during World War II. It is a training base. That's its primary mission. I'm sure there's other missions, other operations going on there. I'm told there's a handful of nuclear weapons up there. I don't know if that's true or not. I've just heard that. That there's stockpile up there, and I'm sure they're guarded pretty well. If they are, wouldn't surprise me if there wasn't something up there. Just they kind of want to spread stuff out. That if we are attacked, there would be nuclear weapons that could be loaded on aircraft and not launched from ground-based ICBMs, but loaded on aircraft and deployed in that method. That method may be too antique for modern force. But anyway, I digress on that point. But Luke Air Force Base was an operation. I just wonder how many ghosts are hanging around Luke Air Force Base. If anybody spots there, Sky Harbor, the one in Glendale, one in Mesa, like Falcon Field. I think that's one down in Mesa. I'm sure there's a number of little regional general aviation airports. Throughout the valley. I just wonder how many ghosts are spotted in some of these. Just curious. If anybody spots a ghost there and wants to let me know, and if they want to do a collab video with me, we go over and maybe you do have a method, maybe or a light, you do have a pilot's license to fly out, general aviation aircraft, and you want to get me on the airport and say, hey, this is where I spotted a ghost 2 years ago or something. It was an older lady that she's asking about her family and stuff. I'm just curious if anybody spots a ghost like that. Just curious. Let's see. Okay, I think the last thing I'm going to cover is on the cheap RV living. Now I see a handful of people here on YouTube. Excuse me. Maybe I'm getting a cold or something. But anyway, see a number of these YouTube content creators talk about how they decked out their vehicle. Now that's what works for them. Now I talk about on a super cheap. Now this is a handful of super cheap. Now, like if I was going to do like an overnighter, I could probably just put a bag of ice in an old ice chest. Just put a handful of food items they could just cook. I wouldn't have to cook them. Just open a can of something, just eat it cold. I might not. Just like overnight or 2-night thing. There's a handful of places with 100 miles of the valley. I'm considering just using my pickup, just doing like an overnight or a 2-night thing. Maybe go get that Pima Air and Space Museum down there by Tucson, then drive through Tucson, do Picacho Peak, then come back and do Air and Space Museum as a second day, something like that. Or maybe go out to camp out by Tonopah, hike out there, hike Saddle Mountain, see what's out there, do this. Look for that old witch cave. Now, personally, I think the BLM probably blew that witch cave up a number of years ago. I don't think it's out there anymore. But if the Tonopah witch, now, chick, I think the Tonopah witch is watching my videos. I think she's probably got a friend. I don't think she's not a very techie person, if she exists at all. I'm thinking she's probably got a friend that shows her these videos. So I may be wrong on that, but chick, I mean, no offense to you. I only call you the Tonopah witch because I may or may not want to get your proper name out there. But anyway, let's get back to doing RV living on the cheap. Now, there's little camp stoves you get off of Amazon for like $20. And they've got these, what they call Peltier. Let me see if I can spell it. P-E-L. Hang on. P-E-L-T-I-E-R. Peltier. I think it's French. But anyway, these little modules, you can get them for like $20. You can get the modules with the heat sinks. But anyway, these will work on 12 volts DC. You can take like a styrofoam ice chest or an old beat up ice chest, cut some little holes in there, mount these things on there. You got yourself a 12 volt DC camping fridge for like $50 or less than that. That's doing the RV life on a super cheap. There's a handful of these things. Now, if some chick wants to join up with me, we can do a handful of these DIY super cheap RV on a super cheap type thing. Now, there's stuff you can do like that. You can camp out in the back of a car and tent camp. I'm sure people do that. Once I get more into this, I had to do a few of these DIY camping on the super cheap, now on Wi-Fi. Now, one lady was saying she used Starbucks. Now, I've never actually walked into a Starbucks. I'm not a coffee drinker. I drink iced tea. I like my caffeine cold, like soda pop and tea and stuff. I got nothing. I don't drink much coffee. One time I drank coffee, it's like super cold. So around here, that's not very often. But anyway, I have got this, the Starbucks Wi-Fi signal from the outside of a Starbucks. There's a Starbucks with the fries over here. It's in here. There's 2 fries here in Avondale. There's one with a Starbucks that's like 115th to Buckeye Road. I have got the signal, the Wi-Fi signal on the outside, but it was iffy. Sometimes I got it, sometimes I didn't. Some of the other places where the Wi-Fi signal was more constant. Well, the one up by Sam's Club is a lot more. I would get it most of the time I went in there, so I just did with where I went. But yeah, but you can get, if you don't want to go with like Starlink, you pay the $100 and some bucks a month Starlink. You just depend upon free Wi-Fi. You can do it from the outside sometimes. Just passing it out there if you want to do the RV life on a super cheap. As I get a little more into this, I'll probably make a few of those. Unless some chick wants to join up with me, maybe as a part-time collab video type thing, or maybe. I've covered that a few times. I'll cover that again. I might luck out and find some chick that. Not necessarily anything romantic. Maybe we can just take off a couple of days and hit up Slab City, where some chick just doesn't feel safe if I go into Slab City. Let me know. And totally platonic, unless as two consenting adults we decide something else. Okay, love ya. Bye-bye.